that for an open? Hello and welcome. Ahoy seems to be the right way to get started here. Get ready to set sail. Great to have you with us. I'm Joe Donlin. Thank you for joining us on CBS News Chicago as we kick off the 116th Race to Mackinac Island. And it's a special one this year as the Chicago Yacht Club marks its 150th anniversary. We have team coverage giving you the best view of the vessels as they depart Chicago, heading for the island off Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And we have our resident historian, Chris Habermill, with us up in Skywatch, giving us a bird's eye view. We also have Win Soldani, race chair, and he's run this race several times. Meteorologist Kylie Miller will be joining us a little later on for a look at the race weekend forecast. So a lot ahead for us over the next hour or so. Looking forward to it. And again, grateful to have you along for the sail. For the fourth year in a row, Mackinac Island has placed in the top 3 best islands in the continental U.S., ranking 3rd for the 2nd year in a row. If you've been there, you know it has timeless charm, car-free streets. Certainly no wonder sailors have been making this trip to the historic island since 1898. We'll be speaking with an island representative later to learn more about some of the island fun. And the Race to Mackinac is the oldest annual freshwater race in the world. It originally had just 5 boats, but has evolved into a world-class sporting event. This year, nearly 300 boats from all over the country are set to sail, and a lot of them, 60 boats, 20% of them are first-time racers. We'll talk about some of that too. And today we're watching the cruising division. Those racers will be competing for this, the White Hawk Trophy. This is the 3rd year the prize will be handed out after being donated by racers Marjorie and Peter Thornton. The cruising division boat looking to defend its title this year and also retain the White Hawk Trophy is Roxy, the X-Yacht 4.0, skippered by Don Condit out of Michigan. The runner-up just on their tail was Vogue. Setting sail tomorrow, Exile, owned by Andy Graff and Scott Eisenhart, looking for a repeat performance in the double-handed division. The winner of the Mackinac Cup that's awarded to smaller boats was Erica, with Brian Cascor at the helm there. Now, the winners of the Mackinac Trophy awarded to the larger boats was Natalie J., with Philip and Sharon O'Neill co-captaining that boat. But the boat that really had the island buzzing was Maverick, the Andrews 80, co-owned by Sanford Burris. Ward and William Kinney broke a 22-year record, making it from Chicago to the Upper Peninsula in 22 hours and 24 minutes, 23 seconds as well. Every second counts. It's about an hour faster than the previous holder, Pi Wackett, which was more than enough for them to bring home the Royano Trophy. So there's a little history and what we're looking forward to this weekend. Let's take a live shot out now over Lake Michigan, where we are expected to see some rough waters this weekend. Kylie Miller joins us now with our race weekend forecast.
I am looking forward to this event, and I'm sure you are as well. We are going to be in today for a good amount of sunshine, and our temperatures today are the star of the show. We're talking about highs today, upper 70s near the lakeshore, but inland we're going to be in the 80s. So for the cruising division, starting at 3 p.m., you can expect a partly cloudy sky condition. The winds at the northeast sustained at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Same thing in knots. So the wave heights are going to be around 1 to 2 feet for that marine forecast. Water temperatures ranging from the low to mid 70s, just depending on what part of Lake Michigan that you're in. But here's a look at those wave heights. Around the lake, the feet are going to be anywhere from about 1 to 2 feet in that range. But then let's talk about the Straits of Mackinac. Wave heights are going to be roughly about 1 foot, so really not too bad. However, we are going to start to see some major changes for tomorrow due to a system that's going to be rolling through. That's going to be changing the wind direction, also giving us more heat and humidity and the potential for some strong to even severe storms for portions of our area as well as Michigan. So here's the forecast with your first alert futurecast. For the rest of today, you can expect just a good mix of sun and clouds. Once the sun goes down, we're going to be under mostly cloudy sky conditions. And then late tonight, maybe a few isolated rain rain showers rolling through. The winds are going to start to change direction for tomorrow as we see a disturbance pass through. It's going to be impacting our northern communities closer to about 11 a.m. early tomorrow morning, and then moving through the heart of the city of Chicago closer to about noon to 2. And then finally pushing through northwest Indiana closer to about 3 p.m. exiting the region, but we will have a few leftover rain showers and a few storms still overnight and then lasting through the day on Sunday. We could see anywhere from about a half an inch to an inch and a half plus of rainwater for the day tomorrow, especially if you get underneath one of those heavy downpours. So flash flooding is going to be a huge concern for tomorrow, followed by some wind damage, and then large hail. Tornado risk for tomorrow is on the lower end, but it's still a risk, so make sure that you're staying weather prepared. As we look ahead to tomorrow, a weather alert has been posted due to the potential for some strong to severe storms. Again, temperatures for tomorrow much hotter with highs running in the upper 80s. So if you're going to be watching the parade of storms tomorrow at Navy Pier, it is going to be warm with temperatures at that point in the 80s for the start time at 10 a.m. And then on your Sunday, temperatures will be a little bit cooler with highs in the upper 70s to near 80 degrees. I'll be breaking down the extended first alert weather forecast coming up in my next report. Joe, I'll send it back to you.
Kylie, thanks very much. All right, let's bring in now our expert on all modes of transportation, Chris Habermill in Skywatch. And Chris, let's just get started by saying happy birthday. And I know as a fan of this race, this is quite a gift for you.
I was going to say, as soon as I heard, Joe, that it was going to be on the 18th and the 19th, I was ear to ear grinning. I cannot believe that the MAC falls on my birthday. Hi, everybody. We're in Skywatch, and it's a beautiful day up here. It's a beautiful day to be out on the beautiful waters of Lake Michigan. And if that's not enough beautiful for you, we will continue to provide extensive coverage of the start coming up here at 3 o'clock of our cruising division. We've got 3 separate sections that are going out. They're going to be passing between this boat right here, that's the signal boat, the Carrier, and the pin boat, the Anna Marie. So basically that forms one end of the 2 ends of the racing start line here. So what they are doing right now are the racers that are going by the cruising division here is they're going by and being acknowledged there at the signal boat. Then they will retire to the safe area just to the south of the start line, which is basically off of the entrance to the Chicago Harbor, right by the Chicago Harbor Light. This year we've got all sorts of exciting things going on because, first of all, it's not only my birthday, it's the birthday of the Chicago Yacht Club, formed in 1875. They are 150 years young this year, so 116 years of the MAC, 127th anniversary of the race for various reasons. If you say, well, that math doesn't add up, well, it's because the race actually started and stopped a couple of times here. Kind of World War I got in the way when they had their first race in 1898, the first basically organized sanction race that the Chicago Yacht Club was at the helm. There was a little bit of a break between that race and about 1904, then they started up again. So it basically started out back in the late 1800s, 1896. There were a couple of boats, the 59-foot sloop Siren and the 64-foot sloop Venena, and a couple of guys making a bet. Well, hey, I guess what? I'll race you to go, first of all, from Chicago over to Michigan City. That first race was disputed because Siren said, well, I've got sails that are kind of outdated, they're a little bit small, so I don't think it was a fair race. That was in 1896. 1897, the next year, they're going to go from Chicago up to Milwaukee. How about it? I'll see you up there in Brewtown. Well, both of the sloops went off course in thick fog, and nobody knew who won. So it was kind of a contested draw, if you will. But again, around rounds of drinks at the bar, it's one of those, I won, no, I won. So that being the case, the Chicago Yacht Club took over things in 1898. First of all, there was a 3-day regatta in June that Venena swept. And you're going to hear a lot about Venena. Guess what? The first sanctioned race in 1898, there were 5 boats. The 2 sloops, Siren and Venena, And there were 3 schooners, the Hawthorne, the Toxteth, and the Nomad. Banana won again, getting up to Mackinac Island in about 52 hours and change there. Came in about 45 minutes ahead of the Hawthorne. Now, why Mackinac Island? Everybody's like, well, okay, this is 333 statute miles. It's the longest annual freshwater race. It's the oldest one. This is a bucket list race for everybody. Why choose Mackinac Island? Well, a lot of the folks that were yachting, that were boating here out of Chicago, they would summer up there at Mackinac Island, and it was just natural. Well, let's see, where do we want to go? Do we want to go to Milwaukee? We want to go up to the Manitous, maybe go up to Traverse City? No, let's go to Mackinac Island. That way, come on. And we will call it a day. And that's what happens right now. Back when it first started, the Banana made it in over 52 hours. Right now, your cruising division boats, about 40 to 50 hours. Racers, 18 to about 23 hours. So they really cook up the lake there based on their hull design and their sail plan and everything else. We'll talk more about that and how weather conditions, how your hull design, how what we call the boat polars kind of figure into this. That's basically a set of dimensions and set of performance standards made up by the manufacturer based on the hull design. How long is it? How wide is it? How sleek is it? How deep is it? What design does it have? What type of sails are you running on the boat? And that gives you kind of your best performance over a distance there based on the wind and the weather. How much wind do you have? What direction is it coming from? What the sea state is? And I'll tell you, this big pond out here, people call it a lake. This is actually an inland ocean over my shoulder here. Now, years ago, Ted Turner came here and challenged the lake and said, this thing is nothing but a mill pond. Well, guess what? Shamed, absolutely. He said, I'm never coming back to this lake again. This is something that will absolutely make you sick to your stomach because these waves, it's always a confused sea. The waves bounce from shoreline to shoreline, so they're coming at you from all different directions. So you could go from flat calm or kind of a glass out condition where it's in the doldrums, all the way to it's just this raging squall and boats are tipping over and all sorts of stuff. And that is what makes this race so special. That is what makes this the ultimate in your freshwater race, is that this tests the mettle. This tests the design of the boat. This tests the coordination of the crew. And a lot of people will make some really, really close friends out of this. I'll tell you, a lot of guys, this is going to be, guys and gals, this is going to be their first race. I believe there's roughly 60 boats. This is going to be their first time here at the Mac, and for you men and women, you mariners, welcome, you sailors. And there are about 500 sailors that this is the first time they're ever going to be doing this. There are also a number of old goats, the Old Goat Sailing Society up on Mackinac Island. That's comprised of hundreds now. It started with 10 back in 1959, but now there are hundreds of sailors that are in the Old Goat Sailing Society. How do you qualify to be a goat? You have to sail at least 25 max. So 25 max or more, and guess what? You get to be a goat. And maybe you'll even make it to Commodore or the chief goat herder, as this is saying may be. So basically, when you're leaving here in Chicago, you're going to be kind of booming up the lake from here. Right. But this year, we've got the Skyline Sprint. And the Skyline Sprint, right after they get off the start line, Joe, they're going to come in tight. The weather looks like it's going to cooperate here, so it's a 5 nautical mile leg that basically takes you from just north of the playpen on kind of a parade lap all the way close into shore, up past North Avenue and Fullerton and Diversey Harbor, Belmont Harbor, which is a really good place to watch, and Montrose Harbor. And then when they get to the Legacy mark, they'll basically turn to the northeast. They'll set up a northeasterly heading and go out into the lake that way instead of going across the start line and then taking their heading to get onto the course. So 5 nautical mile leg up to about the Wilson Avenue breakwater light, and then per racing regulations, they will go out to the northeast and get out into the lake. So we got some great stuff here. It's a great racing day, great cruising day. A lot of people in the playpen down below me right now as we are cruising around ourselves here inside the protected breakwater waters here of the both Navy Pier and the playpen. So boats everywhere.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I'm really pleased that, considering the weather conditions that we've had, Joe, that we don't have the thick haze, we don't have the wildfire smoke. Right. It's really cleared out just in time to get a good race off today.
Well, I think based on that bet back in the late 1890s, we all won looking at what we're watching ahead this weekend. Chris, I'm always amazed every year we do this coverage at your nautical knowledge. Do you sail? Do you have a boat?
No, actually not. You know, Win Soldani and I have been talking about this just the other day, and my sailing experience is comprised entirely of going back and forth on the car ferry Badger from Manitowoc to Ludington. So I've always been a passenger, never a crew member, but that is going to change in the not too distant future. I just love the whole idea of the sport of sailing. Once I get a little bit further down the line and I have a little bit more leisure time, of course, I'd like to take it up. And it's fascinating by virtue of the fact that when you're rigging your sails, when you're putting the sails out there, the sail acts just like an airplane wing. So this is very closely related. You're using the wind for lift. So just imagine an airplane wing, if you will, on its side. So when you go ahead and raise your sail and you get it up there and you trim it out really nice, and it's not flapping around and you captured a lot of the wind in there, it's actually bowed out on one side, forces the air to go faster around that side, creates a low pressure center on one side, pulls you along. So actually, people would think, okay, wait a minute, if I'm thinking about this, and if I got a whole bunch of sheet out there, I've got all of the sails hanging out in the wind, how come if the wind is coming toward me, I'm going into the wind? Well, because you're actually flying into it. That low pressure is kind of pulling you along. If you're lucky enough to have a wind off the stern quarter, you can really go booming up the lake there. So that's all gravy. So this comes down to how are your sails trimmed, what kind of sails are you using, what are your sail choices that you have at hand there, and that has to do with crew coordination, training, dedication, and how you run the sport, how you run your boat. So it's really interesting to see.
Unless you have a name, Chris, I'll give you time to think about it, but what's your boat going to be called?
Probably Hole in the Water, because that's where all your money goes.
That's right. All right, well, we'll get back to you on that, Chris, and we'll be in touch over the next 45 minutes or so. Joining us now is the race chair, Win Soldani. And Win, I'm wondering what the different sort of pressures, concerns, worries are as the race chair compared to a racer.
Well, my main concern right now is that Chris used up all of my material. Is my main concern right now.
That was a thorough history lesson.
Yeah. Chris and I did talk the other day, and he's an incredible student of the sport. And Chris and I committed that we are going to get him sailing later this year after Mac. And that's the way the world is for the Mac chair, right? There's before Mac and after Mac in the middle of July every year. Really not just for me, but for all the people that you see around here. The sailing season is divided into two parts. We've been working on this race as a committee for probably 2 years. Normally, it's 1 year between races normally, so we have a year to plan the next race. This one we've been planning since 2023 and doing a lot of the special stuff that Chris was talking about there.
So we talked, Chris mentioned it there, that we have a lot, 60 boats are first timers. Nearly 2,500 sailors from around the world are represented in this race. For these first timers, I would think this would be a little intimidating.
Yeah, so it's the stats are 49 states. For some reason, we got to do outreach to Alaska. 14 countries, and about 20%. I think it's about 20% of the sailors are first-time sailors this year, which is remarkable. We really put an emphasis on that. And I remember my first Mac race. I remember my first distance race. It is really overwhelming. You've been out in boats around the courses, sort of shorter races, maybe without going where you can't see land. And in this race, you hop on the boat with 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 people that you know, that you trust, that you've trained with, but you don't know what you're going to encounter. You heard Kylie's forecast a little bit earlier that we're expecting storms tomorrow. Like the preparation that you put in really is going to pay off when that happens. And as a first timer, having the trust that the equipment that the boat you're on is really what it needs to be, having the trust that the team you're with is really what it needs to be. That's an important part of it. It is really, really intimidating, and that's why we celebrate our first timers. We want repeat customers, right? So we give them a little commemorative pins. We got a little brunch that we do for them. There's special prizes for the fastest first-time boat to the island. So I think it was 28 boats last year that were first-timers. 14 of them came back this year. So it's a 50% repeat rate, which is, I know, it's a pretty good number, I think.
Yeah. Is there anything else even close to this, Win? I mean, anything like it?
So, look, we're not the only offshore race in the world. We're not the only race that starts one place for sailing and ends in another. There are longer races. There aren't many races that have more boats. We're one of the biggest in terms of number of boats races in the world. But what's unique about this race, and I tell people, it becomes like poetry to me. There is no other offshore race in the world where you start off a great city like Chicago. There is no other offshore race in the world where the first night you're off in Milwaukee, and a lot of times you see like the fireworks off of Summerfest there. It's just a beautiful thing to see. And you're heading offshore now, and then you wake up the next morning and you can't see land anywhere. And for some reason there are flies. I don't know why. In the middle of Lake Michigan, 33 miles offshore, you're descended upon by flies, right? And then you go from there and you see the Michigan shore finally. Point Betsy, Big Sable, lighthouses, sand dunes, Sleeping Bear Dunes, the Manitou Islands. It's all of these sites along there that come to think. I started in a big city. Now I'm at lighthouses and pine trees and Native American lands, right? And then I turn the corner and here's the Mackinac Bridge, this giant industrial, beautiful bridge that was built in the 1950s. I go underneath that bridge, which is super cool if you've never done something like that on a boat. And I end up at Mackinac Island where there's no cars. Everything's by horse. I think people know that at Mackinac Island. And fudge shops are one of the main sort of industries there. And like sometimes you can smell Mackinac Island before you can really start to make out the landmarks of it. So this race is different that way. And then a lot of offshore races, not to criticize them, will start in Los Angeles and in Cabo San Lucas or something like that, or Newport and in Bermuda. Those are great races, but there's water. It's starting point to water to ending point, rather than all those beautiful sites all the way along. That's what we have.
I've talked with other racers about that stretch you just mentioned, and they said that when you get to that point where you go under the bridge to Mackinac, you can see the island, and you have a tendency to get excited because you can sort of see the finish line, but in many ways they said that's often the trickiest stretch of this race. Yeah, a lot of times the current will be going, there are not a lot of currents in freshwater and in lakes compared to in saltwater, but the current that we do have often will tend to be coming towards us as we're heading towards Mackinac Island. And a lot of times just the geography of the straits there will kill the wind. And so you'll end up in like no wind whatsoever and the current going against you, pushing you backwards, right? Now think about that. I've been racing on a sailboat for 3 days at this point. I'm 6 miles from the finish. I just went under the bridge and now I can't make any headway whatsoever. My sails are hanging there. Maybe I'm moving backwards a little bit, and there's no way to stop, and you just gotta sit there and wait and make the best of it until you can get the boat moving again. Many dreams have been broken between the Mackinac Bridge and the finish. It's really incredible to watch once you get to the island. The boats like come under the bridge and watch one boat that's maybe the whole race has been this far behind another one, and it'll get past in the last little couple of miles. It's really beautiful. Well, you bring that up, and it's a good point, Win, because I know safety is critical in this race. It's a beautiful race, it's a fun race, but it's also, quite frankly, a dangerous race, and can be, and I know you do take a lot of steps to make sure these sailors are protected.
Yeah, look, last year that really paid off. We had a man go overboard in a storm at night, last year, and he was recovered in 20 minutes at night, which is really a testament to the training of the crews that we have here. He got picked up by another boat, right, not by his own boat. A testament to the equipment. So there are devices that are called MOBAIS devices that when you hit the water and activate, send out a signal like to boats around you for exactly where you are. Right. He was wearing his PFD, perhaps the most important part of all, right? We have these inflatable PFDs that we tend to wear so we can move around, and then when you hit the water and submerge, they will activate and inflate and keep you up there. So we take that really seriously. All crews are required to do man overboard drills as part of their preparation. They've got to certify that they've done it. As part of that, like everyone's got to know things. They sound simple, but like how to mark a man overboard in their plotter, how to return under sail, how to start the engine if I need to start the engine to save people, how to deploy all the emergency equipment that we have, how to use all the emergency equipment that I have. So there's some things that, like when a man goes overboard, you throw him in the water. There's other things that we use every day, like those PFDs will have a tether on them, and I take that tether and I clip it to what's called the jack line on the boat, and that keeps me connected to the boat so I don't go overboard to begin with. And like we really emphasize training about that kind of stuff, and it pays off. It's not a completely safe sport. It will never be a completely safe sport. It's a sport with a lot of equipment and the elements out there. but certainly we do whatever we can to create a culture of safety in this race.
Yeah, I know it's important. Fascinating insight. Wynn, we're going to be in touch with you as we continue our coverage here. Quickly, though, are you racing, or can you not do that as the race chair? Not physically, but you've got other things to do.
Yeah, I just get to administrate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I just get to administrate the race this year.
All right.
So no, I'm not going to be racing this year, but hopefully back next year.
Well, you're a wealth of information, and as I said, we'll be in touch here as we continue our coverage. Wynn, thanks for now. We'll see you soon. We're going to get back with Chris Habermill as well shortly, and there is much more of our coverage coming up. Once the racers get up to Mackinac Island, they're going to have plenty to do. And up next, we're going to talk with the island's Bureau of Tourism about why they call it a coolcation destination. And the weather getting crowded, the water's rather getting crowded, and we're checking in with Kylie Miller, speaking of the weather, for her extended race weekend forecast. That's ahead. Welcome back to CBS News Chicago as we set sail to Mackinac Island. Taking a live look now over the lake as the vessels get ready to set course. And they are lining up now for the race, which begins in 45 seconds. This is the cruising division. The racers will go off tomorrow, but as you can see, they're lining up and getting ready to set sail for the race, which again begins in just about 30 seconds from right now. All right, so when they get to Mackinac Island, what do they have to look forward to? A lot. There's a reason they call it a coolcation. It is a destination for sure, and one that folks flock to every summer and beyond. I guess we're going to stick with this until we see the actual start of the race, but while we do this, 10 seconds away, let's watch it. There's so much that goes into what has already happened this morning, where, as Chris Habermill pointed out, they have to tack past that signal boat where they basically check in and let the starters know that they are in place and ready to go. So the cruisers getting ready to set off right now. The race is officially underway. So off we go, off to Mackinac, and settle in for the next 45 to 60 hours. Joining us now to talk more about the destination is is the managing director of tourism there on Mackinac Island, Steph Castelline. Steph, thanks for the time. It's great to have you. It's good to see you. Tell us a little bit about Mackinac for those who haven't been there. We were in Traverse City last summer and wanted to get up, and I know we were so close, but it was another, it's another hour and a half, I think, from Traverse City. What are folks missing who haven't been there?
Well, we call it America's coolcation destination for a reason. Mackinac Island is cool in many ways. We're probably best known for having no vehicles. So we are a horse-driven community. Most people get around by walking, biking, horse-drawn carriages. So first of all, there's no place like it anywhere else, especially in the U.S. It's absolutely amazing. And we're 84% state park, so we're very natural. You have the island kind of rises like on a turtle's back, so you have beautiful, stunning vista views. You have beautiful sunsets, amazing waters, and of course those cool breezes that we talk a lot about. It's a magical place, and I definitely recommend folks check it out, look it up, and absolutely come up and visit sometime.
So explain how this works for folks who aren't familiar with it. You have to leave your car on the Michigan side, right? And then how do you get to the island?
Yeah, so most folks, if they're driving or maybe they fly to an airport nearby and take a shuttle over, they leave their vehicles on the mainland. There are 2 port cities, and they load up their luggage and all their goods. Maybe they're bringing bikes over, or maybe they rent them here on the island. But they'll leave their vehicles on the mainland. They'll hop on a passenger ferry and then come over to the island. When they come to the island, they arrive right downtown, where all of our businesses are bustling. We have restaurants and beautiful shops. We're very well known for having fudge. We're the fudge capital of the world, so they can smell fudge as they walk down the downtown streets, and it's an amazing spot.
Yeah, and it's honored as such. I'm sure it means a lot to the community there to keep racking up these accolades.
It really does. We were just named the 3rd best island in the continental U.S. by Travel and Leisure magazine. We were named the #1 best summer destination by USA Today 10 Best. These accolades are just amazing for the island, for the businesses here, and a true testament of how people feel about Mackinac Island. One of my favorite things about my position is getting to share the island with other people and either introduce it to them if they've never heard about it. Wow, you have no vehicles. How do you get groceries? How do kids get to school? What else do you do on the island? Or hearing about how they're connected to the island. Maybe they visited when they were young with grandparents and they're coming back again. Maybe they were, met their significant other while working as a seasonal worker on the island. Whatever story it is, it's so magical to be a part of.
What's the population on the island?
Yeah, we have about 500 year-round residents. So we're a very small island. We do have, a school. In the winter, the library stays open, the hardware store, a handful of restaurants, and of course the grocery store. The oldest family-owned grocery store in the U.S. actually is here on Mackinac Island. And then in the summer, we get 1.2 million visitors between May and October. So we have so many people who come and experience and explore Mackinac Island, and there's many great places to visit, but there is nothing like spending the night on Mackinac. And what's so fun is with these sailors and participants, a lot of their families and friends are coming here, ahead of time, anticipating their arrival. And so it's fun. I'm starting to see some race shirts and some water bags around downtown. And so you can see all the family and friends are starting to come in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Steph, what it means to the island to have this race as the focal point.
It's definitely a staple for us. We talk about the yacht races in July. It's something that many people, of course, the businesses and Mackinac Islanders know and love and welcome with open arms. It's also something that we share with, folks in northern Michigan and the greater region of Michigan. And so that's a fun part of it too. But it just means we get to welcome new people. You all are talking about the new race signups, the first timers, and getting to share Mackinac Island with people as their final destination, as the goal that they're going toward. And when they arrive, like Wynn was saying, sometimes you can smell Mackinac, you can smell the fudge, you can smell those fresh breezes. Like there's something magical about this place. And so to have the racers and the participants and this race continue to include Mackinac and end on Mackinac is just, we're so pleased.
Well, you pointed it out. I won't say you have an easy job, but you have a job that maybe makes it easy, right? It's an easy sell for sure.
I tell a lot of people people this. I'm a transplant to Michigan in general, and I did not know, I was not aware of Mackinac Island before, moving up to northern Michigan. And it is truly a magical place. Trying to describe it, I fail every time with words. I'm like, you gotta just come and experience it for yourself. And you're right, it is an easy sell, but it takes a whole island to make that happen. We have so many great businesses and families who have been here for generations who continue to make it a special place.
Well, don't sell yourself short. You sell it well. Steph, thank you so much for the time. We'll get up there at some point, so save me a piece of fudge.
Will do.
All right, thanks for the time. Take care. All right, let's go back up to the birthday boy. I got a name for your boat, Chris.
Yep, you do?
Yeah. Harbor Mel.
Hey, actually, I like that. I like that, Joe. That's good. Yeah,
okay.
That's good. I like that. Well, we're off and racing here. This is one of the 13 boats of Section 3 of our cruising division. They got the 3 p.m. start there. First boats across the line flying the Aqua Pennant from the backstay. This is a Scorpion Baracho, a Coronado 34 with looks like. We've got Anthony, I'll get his name here in just a minute, at the helm here. But Anthony's at the helm. Let's put it to you that way. Anyway, that's one of our 13 boats out here. Cerulean, Condicoro, Endeavor. This boat is Scorpion Baracho, Freedom, Invictus, Juliana, Cuddy's Ark. Always a good name that we focus on every year. Rebel, Roga, or Raja, sorry, Vagabond Voyager, and Win Some More. It sounds almost like a bunch of thoroughbred horses out here, and certainly they are. So we've got a lot of boats, all 13 have crossed the line here on your first section, Section 3. The 10-minute warning has already gone out. We're 3 minutes to the launch of the next section here, which would be Section 2. So Section 2 is across the line at 3:10 with the yellow pennants on the backstay, and that's also at the cruising division. So off in our safety zone here, back behind the line, we've got Endless Summer, Fuzzy Logic, Intangible, Jasmine, Joint Venture, Jug Band, Mise en Place, No Rush, Quiet Refuge, Roxy, Runaway, Schadenfreude, Serenity, Shenandoah, Surprise, and Vogue. There are 16 boats in section number 2. Now, as we get out and get on the course here, first thing that they're going to do is they're going to hit that 5 nautical mile stretch called the Skyline Sprint. That's new for this year and out of the 150th year of the Chicago Yacht Club. It's basically going to take them at a 45 across the end of the opening into the playpen there with the break wall. Then they're going to turn north along the shoreline, kind of closer in, head on up along the shore to right around the Wilson Avenue breakwater light, and then they can set their course to the northeast and get out into the open waters of the lake. Once you get out here, from what I have heard from the different sailors and talked to and heard over the years, there's actually 3 races within the race. It's from here out to Point Betsy up by Frankfurt, from Point Betsy up to the Mackinac Bridge, and then a whole third section, which is a whole 5 miles long, from the bridge to Round Island Light, where you get the cannon shot, and that is your finish line. That's only 5 miles long. Now, the first section there, that 190-mile stretch, that takes you, as Wynn was talking about earlier, Wynn Saldani, our race chair, basically kitty corner from one side of the lake. You're going diagonal all the way over there. You see Point Betsy, and you've got the dunes and the lighthouses and all of the vision of the Michigan shoreline, which is absolutely amazing. Then you're going to get up and through the Manitous. A lot of people are going to be on the inland side of the Manitous. Some people over the years, the Manitou Islands, they've gone around the outside because there's a belief that's where more wind is at right out there. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's part of the magic of this race. Then it's up to the reef, Gray's Reef Light there before you make that turn into the Straits of Mackinac, and that's roughly, when you're making that turn, about 25 miles away from the Mackinac Bridge. So you're just able to see the very top part of the superstructure of the big towers on the Mackinac Bridge there. The bridge went up in 1957. Before then, a long time while they were racing, there was no bridge. A long time before you had all of your GPS help, not only on board, but people watching from shore. There were different reporting points where you got to cross the 45th parallel. You had to basically call in and let people know on shore that you've crossed that, and that was the only way to kind of keep track of the fleet. Right now, why was there initially such a huge gathering of people that were interested in the Mac race? Well, basically it's because back in the 1800s, there was no NASCAR. There was some horse racing, of course, but this was exotic. This was fun. It was a day on the water. Everybody really got into yachting and boating and being out on the water. And you got to remember there, too, we didn't have our big interstate commerce system. The interstate commerce was run when you had a lot of packet boats, excursion steamers, freighters that were bringing supplies into the city of Chicago, which is a main maritime hub here on the Great Lakes, and one of the greatest of the Great Lakes being Lake Michigan, of course. So after 1871 and the Great Chicago Fire, you had all of this commerce, all of this trade that was coming in on the water. How do you move a lot of goods quick? You put it in a big boat and you sail it off to Chicago for distribution. You also had to rebuild Chicago after the fire as well. So there was a lot of commerce here. There was a lot of trade. There were boats choked up in the main channel of the Chicago River, and boating, yachting, that was a natural part of life back then. That was a great spectator sport. There was a lot of things written about the sailing sport in the newspaper, so it was very popular. And as you can see from today, it just exploded, and it has stayed popular ever since that time. So now we've got the second section that has already crossed the line about a minute ago here, so they are off and going up. This is 16 boats in Section 2 of the cruising division. They started at 3:10, so we're about a minute into their section of the race. And waiting in the safety zone, we've got 12 boats in Section 1. And basically, all of these different sections, the way these are split up, are these are boats that are pretty well close in performance and design to each other. So they would be roughly going out in a section there that pretty much each boat parallels the performance of the other one. So that's why they're split up into the three sections. Not just one big start, but you have a staggered start here. So we're waiting for the last of the three starts this afternoon, Joe.
I don't know where you keep all the information in your head, Chris. Sometimes it's just baffling to me, the amount of knowledge you have stored. But we certainly appreciate tapping into it. We'll be in touch, Chris. We'll talk with you in just a minute. But in the meantime, we want to get back to Win Saldani, who joins us again from the Yacht Club. Win, let's talk a little bit for folks who aren't sure the difference between a cruiser and a racer.
Yeah, it's a great question. So think of a cruising van. I heard someone use the analogy: a cruising boat, is more like an RV. And a racing boat is more like a race car. So when you think about cruising boats, they're going to be more comfortable. I know one that has air conditioning on it. They're going to have the wine cellars on them. They're going to just not be kind of optimized to go really, really quick. That's not their main job. Their main job is to balance comfort and speed. They have limitations on the sails they can carry. They get some opportunities that racers don't like. You can have an automatic helm. You can, more commonly, you'll have sort of electric winches to help you pull the sails around. On a cruising boat, they're going to be heavier, they're going to accelerate less quickly, kind of like, again, an RV is not a bad analogy. When you think about race boats, and there's some of them behind me right now, the race boats are going to be more like a race car, so we'll see carbon fiber all over a lot of the highest end race boats. Everything made out of carbon fiber, the little bursts below made out of carbon fiber. I've even seen a carbon fiber toilet on a race boat, which is really like, I mean, that's super extreme, right? So the materials are different, the masts are taller, the sails will be made out of different material in a racing boat. They're way more expensive. Everything on a boat's expensive, right? But they're way more expensive from a sail perspective. And you're going to find that on racing boats, they're also changing the things that wear out. Things wear out a lot more quickly to begin with because we push those boats a lot harder. And then you're going to be updating those things a lot more often to stay competitive. So they're just two really different beasts kind of. And that's why we start the cruising boats a day earlier, as Chris was kind of talking about, and the racing boats a day later, because the racing boats are going to catch the cruising boats, and then they end up finishing kind of mixed up, which is a really nice way to arrive at the island.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the route. I know Chris mentioned it, and this is interesting to have the sprint that we have this year, the Skyline Sprint, as a new element of this. Yeah. But once you get there, as I understand it, you can take a couple of different tacks. You can hug a little closer to the Wisconsin side, or you can hug a little closer to the Michigan side. Tell us a little bit about the decisions that you have to make, sort of in flight, if you will, to get to Mackinac.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's one of my favorite parts of racing, actually, is sort of those strategic and tactical decisions. Sailboat racing can be a lot like playing chess, where you've got to think about like the moves the other boats are making, but also the moves that the weather is making on you. And so what we do now is really interesting. We have apps, we have software that it's routing software. And what we do is we're able to get a picture of how our boat performs at different points of sail. So if it's going into the wind or away from the wind or across the wind, and we're able to take that information and put it into one of these routers along with the weather models. Kylie knows all about those, I'm sure, and along with the weather models. And then the router can tell us where we should be. So even if right now it's best to be along the Wisconsin shore, maybe 24 hours from now it's going to be way better to be along the Michigan shore. And so the router will help us figure out what the right balance is between staying to one shore or the other, or splitting the difference, when to go across and so forth. So running on a little bit about it, I'm sorry.
No,
but,
it's interesting. I can't
this
imagine.
race we're going to have a cold front. Yeah, it's a lot. So this race we're going to have a cold front. Go ahead.
No, I was just go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, so we're going to have a cold front coming through in this race. And so when you think about that, a cold front is north winds coming straight down the lake, and we're going to end up in a situation where, sailboats don't go into the wind really, really well. That's one of the things we don't do really, really well. The wind's always trying to push us back. And so the decision in a north wind of which side to go is more about what the next wind is going to be, rather than what the wind currently is. And so again, like a chess game, you're thinking a couple of moves ahead and using the software and the weather models to help you inform that.
Is this something the helmsman does, or is this something that the crew does as a whole? You think about all these things. How does that work?
Yeah, another great question. So on some of the boats that are smaller, so there's double-handed boats all the way up to, I think our biggest boat has 18 crew members on it, and specialization changes as the boats get bigger. So on a boat that has 2 people on it, they're both probably doing the routing and navigating and tactics and sail handling, all the stuff that you need to do, obviously. Mm-hmm. When you get to 6, 7, 8 people, you might start getting someone to be a navigator and maybe a strategist. When you get to the really, 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 really big boats, 18 people, you might have someone navigating. They're just worried about where I go. A strategist who's also then thinking about where the other boats are going at the same time, and sometimes even a tactician that's about the boats that are immediately by me that I'm in competition with. What do I need to do to defend against them?
Yeah.
So depending on the number of people.
Do you ever get to a point where you're out there, you've made a decision, and you get to a point where you think you know where you are, but you look around and there are no other boats, and you say, where is everybody?
Yeah, right. And that's either really good news or really bad news when that happens. And I would say most of the time in this race, because we're talking about 300 boats, like if you're by yourself, like the entire herd is rarely wrong. Right? So if you're off by yourself somewhere, that means that you've taken what we call a flyer in sailboat racing, and they pay off. I mean, I've had flyers pay off in 200-mile sailboat races with smaller fleets, but generally it's going to be someone that's close to the herd, but maybe making a bet a little bit closer to Michigan or a little bit closer to Wisconsin, or going around the Manitous instead of inside of the Manitous, and smaller decisions like that still keep you on generally what we call the rum line, which is the shortest route from here to Mackinac Island. So keeping you along that, but maybe veering a little bit and finding a little more wind or a favorable shift to one side or the other of it.
Right, the rum line, R-H-U-M-B, not the rum, R-U-M. That's what you enjoy when you get to
And there's
Mackinac.
a fine line between the rum line and the rum line. Yeah, there's a fine line between those two.
Yeah. All right, Wynn, we're going to be in touch. Thanks again, as always. And you mentioned the weather earlier, and it's always a critical part of the decision making for these sailors. So let's get another live look out over Lake Michigan and get the latest from Kylie Miller on the weather this weekend.
Ready, set, sail. It is about to begin the race to Mackinac, so let's talk about the weather conditions. So around the lake here for the southern portions of Lake Michigan, wave heights are going to be about 1 to 2 feet. The winds out of the northeast sustain at 5 to 10 knots. The UV index today, though, is an 8. So if you're going to be out watching the boats, it is going to be a warm one. Plus, you could burn in about 30 minutes or less. So, of course, where the sun sunscreen, and the water temperatures are in the mid-70s. So for the cruising division, starting at 3 p.m., you can expect temperatures to be in those upper 70s, partly cloudy to mostly clear sky conditions. And then once the sun goes down, we're going to start to see increasing cloud cover as temperatures drop to lows in the upper 60s to the low 70s. And then for tomorrow, the racing division starting at 11 a.m. Look at this, a chance of some scattered rain showers and some storms. Plus, it's going to be warm and more humid too. We're going to be monitoring the potential for some stronger storms to push through between 11 a.m. and about 3 p.m. tomorrow. So that is going to give us some stronger wave heights, more chop in the water, and also notice the wind direction is going to be changing too. So here's what you can expect with your first alert weather futurecast. So as we look ahead to the overnight period tonight, maybe a few isolated rain showers dotting our landscape, but we are going to be seeing the winds positioning themselves out of the south, and then eventually we're going to be seeing the winds changing direction more out of the north later on in the day tomorrow. So here's what you can expect. 3 p.m. tomorrow, some scattered rain showers and some storms rolling through, and then eventually by Saturday night, Sunday, that's when those winds do change again. But as we look ahead to tomorrow, the severe storm risk, that is going to be elevated for flash flooding as well as wind damage. It is a low-end risk for hail as well as spin-up tornadoes, but for tomorrow, we're under a level 2 out of 5 on the risk scale, and it's not just for us here across the Chicago area. It even extends into lower portions of Michigan. So for those who are going to be watching there, it's going to be a little bit more dicey with the weather. But as we look ahead to tomorrow, a weather alert has been posted due to the strong to severe storms being possible. Sunday, more storms are expected, mainly south of the city, a little bit cooler too, with temperatures in the upper 70s. Low 80s return on your Monday, upper 80s on Tuesday. And look how hot it's going to be for Wednesday and Thursday. Highs will run into the mid-90s, but it will feel closer to about 100 to 110 degrees during the peak heating hours of the day for your Wednesday and Thursday. Joe, I'll send it over to you.
Kylie, thanks very much. It sounds like if there is good news, that dicey weather tomorrow is going to be during the day between 11 and 3, as Kylie said. So some of these sailors I've talked with say the most frightening part of that dangerous weather is when it happens overnight in the middle of the evening when it's dark. So we'll wish for the best for them on the weather. And in fact, speaking of that, the storms did make for rough sailing during last year's race. There were some pretty scary moments, including a successful man overboard recovery that you heard Wynn talk about earlier here. 3 boats even lost their mast, but luckily everyone was able to make it to land safely. We talked about just how dangerous that can be. It wasn't smooth sailing for everyone back in 2023 either. A lack of wind made it a long, drawn-out race for some of the sailors. More than 24 boats were stalled, moving very slowly, if at all, in northern Lake Michigan. Nothing they could really do but just wait for the breeze to pick back up, since they're disqualified if they turn on their motors. If you want to keep track of the boats throughout the weekend, there is a great way to do that. There's a website. Just go to cycracetomackinac.com. You can see it here, or just search Race to Mackinac and you'll see it. You'll get live updates on the boats. You'll get information on each of the boats as well. You can see where they are in Lake Michigan. It's a pretty fascinating tool. All right, we're going to get ready to learn more about boats. After the break, Chris Habermill and the race chair, Wynn Soldani, are back to talk about some of the vessels we'll be seeing this weekend. this weekend we have the Race to Mackinac, and it is underway, the cruising division anyway, and those of us living vicariously through the sailors on the water have been enjoying the last hour learning an awful lot about this race and the history of the race. In fact, speaking of that, I wanted to show a picture here that one of the racers sent me. Bill Zeiler is his name, and he is friends with Sean O'Neill, who has been a race chair in the past. And these two guys, in fact, I understand Sean O'Neill is set to be the youngest to get to 50 races. We've been talking about how this, the GOAT Society, those who've done it 25 times, but Sean's going to be the first one to get to 50, or the youngest anyway, at that stage. Hopefully we can show you this picture. It's from 1990 when these two were on a boat, I believe, for the first time in this race. And I believe Sean was just 13 years old. Bill was 17, I guess. But we do have 2,500 racers, and the youngest is 14 this year, the oldest 88. Let's bring back Wynn Soldani and Chris Habermill to talk a little bit more about this. And Chris, I'm going to let you take the conversation from here, but I'm hoping you guys can cover how this works from a crew standpoint. Are these guys up, awake the whole time? Do they take shifts? How does that work?
Well, typically we know that you're going to have 3 watches. And you're typically going to have 2 watches on deck, and one watch is going to try and get some sleep. You never want to have just one, because you want to have kind of a transition watch in between the two that kind of bridges the gap. Now, Wynn, greetings. Hi, my friend. Welcome in from Skywatch here. We're looking
hey,
at
Chris,
Whitehawk.
happy birthday.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and the great work you do here as chairman of the race. Tell us a little bit about Whitehawk and the difference here between Whitehawk and some of the other smaller boats. It seems that every year Whitehawk gets up there, you follow it online, and it's up there waiting for everybody else. Now, as far as scoring goes, there's that velocity prediction program. How can you score Whitehawk versus everybody else?
Well, let me, first things first, Chris. I'm so afraid you're going to stump me on something here, but there are boats that have different watch systems than what you just described. So my friend Tom Falk on Intangible, a red boat that you see out there probably, actually does a one-on, one-off system, so that he has people sharing positions, and if the jib trimmer goes down, the other one comes up, and you never have more than one person coming up at a time. So there's always at least one fresh person on deck constantly through the race. There are other boats that are so fast no one ever goes below. So they will just all sit on the rail, because that helps keep the boat under control for whatever, 24, 30, 48 hours. They'll sleep on the rail if they need to do it. So there's actually a lot of different schools of thought about the watch systems. Yeah, so it's neat. Now, back to your question about Whitehawk. We're implementing this really interesting thing called weather routing scoring this year. And I've got to back up a little bit about this, but both you and I have mentioned that we're able to predict how fast a boat can go depending on the point of sail that it's on. So right now you're seeing the boats in the cruising fleet doing what we call reaching, where the wind is coming across sort of the side of the boat, the beam of the boat, in about, let's call it 8 knots of wind. Well, we have computer models that can predict that. And what we do is we run each boat through one of those routers that I was talking about earlier, and we come up with when it should finish based on its characteristics. So Whitehawk should finish way faster than Cuddy's Ark or Endeavor or Intangible or other boats in the cruising division. But we run it through a router, and we say that Whitehawk, given the models, should finish in 40 hours. Cuddy's Ark should finish in 80 hours. Therefore, whoever finishes closer to that time, that predicted time, has done a better job of racing and wins the race. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, and I'm interested to know about the whole changing in the watch system as well. That some people are actually out on deck for the whole thing. They're never below. That is amazing. Speaking of that, how do people get ready? I know I'm not even sailing. I haven't been on a sailboat yet. Wink, wink. And I was totally jazzed about this. Are you up late at night? Are you trying to get some sleep? What goes through your mind when you're getting ready right before race day? You've been through 6 of these now.
Yeah, I've done this. I did other distance races too. But number one, I promised Chris the other day we're going to get him out sailing after Mac. So that's a birthday promise to Chris, number one. Number two is, I think it depends a lot on sort of whether this is your first one or your 20th one or your 50th one. Sean O'Neill's a great friend, by the way, and a part of the committee here. So Sean prepares for it with, I think, a whole different sort of anticipation than someone doing it for the first time. Sean brings his whole family up there. They know exactly what room they're staying in at the hotel, what the view is going to be, what the restaurant program is going to be every night, the reservation. It's military precision for them. Versus if you're doing it for the first time, I remember I was like, gosh, how many pairs of underwear do I pack? Kind of, like what toiletries can you bring in the boat? And you got to worry about that stuff because sailboat racing and the speed of a sailboat, it's just like bike racing. It's power to weight, right? So the sails generate so much power, and they've got to push a hull through the water, which is very, very, very high drag. The more weight that you put on, the harder it is to push that hull through the water. So we tend to be very, very weight conscious. And that's another thing as a first timer that I think you have to, that's a really big question. Do I weigh my bag? Do I have a weight limit maybe for the boat that I'm on for how much that I can bring on the boat? Do I have a bag limit, a size of bag? So you're thinking through a lot of stuff like that. And yes, I think you're sleepless the night before. I remember my very first distance race. I don't know that I slept for 2 hours the night before. I got on the boat. We got hit by a squall that night. The boat got knocked over. I was nauseous, I was excited, I was crazy, but God, it was beautiful.
You hear that a lot. That's one of the reasons that this is like the absolute ultimate thing to do. If you're a sailor, if you aspire to be a sailor, I mean, I can make my 50th Mac. I'll be 111, but I can make my 50th Mac and do the whole double goat thing eventually. Hey, before we go, let's talk about the Ultramac real quick. 11 of the boats actually participated in the Bayview Mackinac race. That's a 101st year for them, and all 191 of those entries finished in under 45 hours. They had some good southwest winds, pretty brisk, pretty refreshing there. Now, 11 boats did not stop at Mackinac Island. They went all the way up, came all the way back down again. That's about 548 nautical miles. So that is quite the haul. Is everybody that started now finished there with the Ultramac?
Yeah, I'm not precisely sure about this, but I know our first finisher was Tuesday afternoon. That was Hooligan. The boat design is called the TP52, one of the racer boats that I was talking about earlier. We then had boats coming in kind of all day on Wednesday. We may have had our last one come in on early Thursday. I'm not sure whether it was last Wednesday night or Thursday. 9 of 11 boats made it. There were some mechanical problems along the way, and that's going to happen. As I was talking about, we push these boats when we race them. So just like NASCAR, we saw a couple of weeks ago, they're going to break on the margins a little bit when you're pushing them for that long, for 548 hours, for 4 or 5 days.
Outstanding.
I want to emphasize that as another point of your watch. Oh, okay.
Yep. Thanks, Wynn, very much. We really appreciate your input all day today, and it's always a pleasure doing the Mac race with you. And fair winds and following seas to all of our sailors there for the Mac 2025, the 116th version, 116th running of the best freshwater race in the world. Joe?
Yeah. Hey, Wynn, I know how you feel. Chris just took my line. Fair winds and following seas. Gentlemen, it's been really a pleasure to have both of you. As always, I didn't know a whole lot about the race, so I had a lot of questions, and you've answered just about all of them. A wealth of information, both of you. Thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow. Wynn, good luck with the rest of the race. And if you're interested in going out on Saturday, the parade of boats will officially pass by Navy Pier starting between 10 a.m. and 1 in the afternoon. And then the racing division starts on the water between 11 and 2 p.m. If you want to get down there, Navy Pier, a great place to watch. Thank you for watching our coverage of the start of the 116th Chicago Yacht Club Race to Mackinac. And I'll repeat it anyway because it's important and a nice send-off to all the sailors. We say fair winds and following seas. Here's to a smooth and safe weekend.